Hello everybody. Here's what you're going to learn in your debugging lesson today. You'll learn how to use the debugger to set a breakpoint and step through the program looking at what values your variables have. That's the most important thing. You'll know the difference between stepping over and into a method. You'll know how to set multiple breakpoints so that you can resume and skip through lengthy repetitions. And you'll know how to test expressions by typing them into the expression tester. You don't know what this means yet, but you will in just a second. I'm going to teach you the basics of the debugger using this extremely short example. You can almost certainly see the bugs already if you think about them, but our goal is going to be to practice using the debugger rather than finding the bugs. You'll find the bugs later in a more complicated program. So I want you to copy this and create a new class so that you can follow along. This class is called Intro. So in a new project, mine is called Debugging Practice. You'll want to say new Java class, intro with a capital I, and then select everything and replace it. Pause the video if you need to. You'll see that this is a simple enough set of bugs that IntelliJ already knows where some of the bugs are. Don't hover over these to see where the bugs are. We are practicing debugging instead. All right, so pause until you're here. So here's the most important thing. You can't debug anything unless you have a clear picture in your mind about what's supposed to be happening on every single line. So let's take a look and see what's happening. I'm supposed to be approximating the probability that I'll roll a 1 or a 2 when I roll a 6-sided die. And the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to loop 10,000 times. I'm going to roll a 6-sided die, and I'm going to test if I get a 1 or a 2, I'll add to the count. At the end, the approximate probability of rolling a 1 or a 2 is going to be how many times that happened divided by the 10,000 trials that I had overall. Okay, so let's start debugging. We don't know that there's a bug yet, so let's run the code. I see that there is no output happening, but I also see the red box shows me that the program's running. So what do I make of that? The thing that you see that lets you know that there's a bug we'll call the symptom. So not seeing any output when there should be output is a symptom. Or possibly thinking that it's running forever. That would be a symptom. We're going to try and narrow down where in the code is the cause. There's not a lot of narrowing that needs to happen here, but most bugs, what makes them hard to find is you don't know where they're happening. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to watch how the values inside our variables change, and we're looking for the moment that the values aren't what they're supposed to be, or the moment that the execution isn't doing what we expect it to do. So to use the debugger, you're going to click directly next to the line numbers here, and that creates a red circle called a breakpoint. So let's set a breakpoint up at the top. You won't always start it at the top, but it's a nice place to start it for this example. And then this little bug here that's next to the right play button, if you click the bug, that will run your program in debug mode. What's going to happen in debug mode is it'll execute your program, but it's going to pause as soon as it gets to the breakpoint. You'll also see that in addition to my code, it'll show me the current value of the variable. So since we've only run line 3, count has been initialized to 0, but we don't see anything else. I can now run the code one line at a time by clicking this step over button, the kind of up-down arrow. So if I click it once, now I've run line 4, and val is equal to 0. Click it again. Now trials is 0. Let's click it one more time. So you'll notice that I've run line 8 here, but val is still equal to 0. This is the moment where you need to be thinking at every single line, is the thing that actually happened something that I might expect to see? And I'm expecting to see a number between 1 and 6 here, but I ended up getting 0. So that's the moment. That's one moment where I say, okay, I know where the bug is. It's right here. If you see what the issue is, great, we can fix it. Let's pretend we don't see what the issue is. Something else that you can do in debug mode is right here in this dialog, you can see evaluate expression. So I can evaluate expressions like 1 plus 1, and it'll say result is 2. Or I could say like math.random. And each time I evaluate it, it gives me a different random number. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to evaluate this expression, which is the one that I think should give me random numbers. I see that I'm pressing enter, and each time I press enter, I'm getting a result of 0. So that tells me that something about this line is creating zeros all the time. So this is where if you don't see it, you should ask somebody. If I put the times 6 on the inside of the parentheses, now it looks like I am getting integers. Although, look, I can still get the integers 0. So it's not quite fixed yet. I'm getting integers between 0 and 5, if you look carefully. But you'll see that I'm never getting 6, and I'm also sometimes getting 0. So if I add 1 on the outside, and I think you guys know this already, now I'll be able to really get values between 1 and 6. Okay, so what have we learned so far about the debugger? You can set a breakpoint, you can step one line at a time, and you can also test expressions using the expression tester. Let's stop and fix that bug, and there will be more bugs to find. I'm going to run in debug mode again. And I'm going to step one line at a time. And so now I can verify that something's happening that makes sense. I can say, okay, value is 2. You can see it over here on the right. And if value is 2, I'm expecting count to go up by 1. You can see that the debugger is already telling us that value equals 1 is false, but value equals 2 is true. So we should see the counter go up, and we do. So that looks great. So we still haven't fixed our infinite loop problem. Look carefully and see whether you can see the value in a variable not doing something that it should be doing. What I'm seeing is that val is changing, count is changing, but trials is never changing. So even though I'm looping, I'm never going to get to the point where trials is not less than 10,000, because trials is never going up. So the bug might not be a line of code you typed wrong. It might be a line of code you forgot. And that's why it's really important to have in your mind what's supposed to be happening, so you can notice when that's not happening. So let's add trials++. You could debug again and verify that that's going to work. Let's run the code. And now at least we're printing something. There's another bug, because I see a new symptom. Probability shouldn't be 0. So we're going to leave this debugging example now, but you could continue trying to debug using those same tools. Instead, I want us all to jump over to a different program. This is the ice cream problem that you did as part of your classwork. You're going to work through 6 different versions of the ice cream problem, each of which has a different bug that get more difficult to find as you go along. This is a working version that I want us to trace first. So just like you did last time, copy starting at the top with main 1. And let's create a new class called main with a capital M and a 1. And we'll select everything and paste. This is a working version of the program because I want to teach you 2 more things. I want to teach you how to step into, and I want to teach you how to resume. So let's add the breakpoint at line 7 and run it in debug mode. This is going to be displaying a table where I'm debugging the wrong thing. Hold on, let's go to main. Oops. So the reason debug was debugging intro is because intro was selected here, because that was the most recent thing we've run. On line 2 up here, you can hit the play button and go to debug main 1, because that's the thing we actually want to debug. All right, great. So this is going to display a table where we're changing the chance of getting chocolate ice cream. And for each different probability of getting chocolate ice cream, we're going to find the average number of ice creams we have to buy before we have both chocolate and pistachio. And then we're going to display those 2 numbers. Let's just look at what happens when we step a couple times. So we step. It paused for just a second because there was a lot of calculation happening inside this method, but you see answer is 19.8, which doesn't seem unreasonable. Let's step one more time, and now we're back up at the top here. If you want to check the console, there's a console button here, and we can see it's displayed probability of chocolate 5%, average number of ice creams 19.8. Okay, so let's go back to debugger. So I can just click, and it's just stepping through the lines in this method. But what happens if I think the bug is inside find the average? I want to go inside there. On this line, instead of clicking the up-down arrow, right next to it, there's something that says step into. It looks like just a downward arrow. So if I click that, now it has jumped inside the execution for find the average. You can see up here it says probability is 30 because that's the input that got passed. And now I can click here. So trial is 0. And so now I'm clicking. But this seems like it's taking a very long time because it's going to loop 10,000 times. And maybe I don't want to loop all 10,000 times. Maybe I want to just jump straight to line 19. So add a breakpoint in line 19, and then click this button here that says resume. If I resume, it's going to loop all 10,000 times, and it won't stop until it gets to line 19. So there we are. You can see that... Where does it say what the trial? Oh, so trials are done, so you can't see what the trial number is. But you can see that the number of ice creams that I bought, the sum, is a large number. So presumably that did what it was supposed to. Hit the resume button again. Notice that this number's changed. Hit resume again. Oh. It went back up to my earlier breakpoint. Let's uncheck the earlier breakpoint and hit resume one last time. Okay. So you can see the number, let's hit resume a couple more times. So you can see each time I resume, the number of ice creams has changed. And the probability is going up because what's happening is I'm running the entire find the average, and then it's only pausing on line 19. So if you want to, you can have several breakpoints. If I have 14 and 19, okay, so I'm paused here. You see probability 65, and then if I click resume, now it's done all 10,000 trials, and I'm still in my call for probability being 65, but now I've got numbers of ice creams. So this is a more flexible way you can use breakpoints rather than stepping if there's a lot of repetition happening. Okay, time for your challenge. If you scroll down in your document, you'll see bug 1, bug 2, bug 3, and so on. For each bug, I want you to copy all of the code and paste it. So here I'm going to replace everything here by pasting. And now if I run it, you'll see that not in debug mode, just in regular mode, you'll see that there's a symptom. I've got an infinite loop here. So I want you to debug in pairs with your partner for challenge 1. Rate the symptom that you saw when you ran code example 1. Rate the symptom that shows you that something was wrong. Then practice setting breakpoints and tracing and tell me what was it that you eventually saw while you were tracing the code that led you to the answer. I'm not interested in you looking at the code without the debugger to try and guess what the answer is. I want you to check your guesses by using the debugger. You should actually see something happening or not happening, and then tell me what the bug was. If you can get to bug number 3, I will give you 1 marble. Good luck, team. I wish you the best.